My name is Claire Bennett. I was 32 years old when I learned what an empty chair sounds like. I planned my wedding 14 months in advance, hand-addressed every envelope, tracked every RSVP in a spreadsheet I updated at 6 in the morning before work. 85 invitations. 42 of them went to my side of the family. I sent them 4 months early because I am the kind of person who sends things 4 months early. 2 weeks later, my brother announced his engagement party on the same day. Not a week before, not a week after, the same day, June 15th. And when June 15th came, I walked down the aisle at a farmhouse in the Blue Ridge foothills, and the chairs on my side were almost empty. 3 people out of 42. My dad did not walk me down the aisle. He was at my brother's backyard barbecue, drinking a beer in a folding lawn chair. But he found time to send me a text while I was cutting my wedding cake. "What did you do?" I read it, I smiled, and I put my phone face down on the table. Here's what none of them expected. I had been keeping that spreadsheet. And the day it came out, it changed everything.
I need to take you back to understand how I got here. I was 16 years old the first time I filed my family's tax return. My mother handed me a shoebox of receipts and a form she said she didn't understand. She understood enough to sign the check at the end. She just didn't want to do the work. That was my role, the fixer, the translator, the one who sat on hold with the insurance company for 45 minutes so my mother didn't have to. I scheduled my father's dentist appointments. I compared car insurance quotes when my brother's rates went up after his second fender bender. I was 14 when I started organizing holiday dinners because my mother said she was too tired, and I believed her. My brother Tyler was 3 years older and lived a different life in the same house. He got a car for his 16th birthday, a used Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door, but it was his. When I turned 16, my mother said the family couldn't afford 2 cars. I rode the bus until I bought my own at 19 with money I'd saved from tutoring. My father, Robert, was a retired postal worker who believed in one principle above all others: your mother knows best. He said it when Linda decided Christmas dinner would be at our house every year. He said it when she gave Tyler the bigger bedroom. He said it when I asked why my report cards never went on the fridge. Somewhere in college, I started keeping a folder. Not for any reason I could name at the time. Just receipts, transfers, texts, things I had helped with, things I had paid for. A record of everything no one had asked me to keep. I didn't know what it was for yet, but I knew I wanted it. I met Daniel Carter at a financial services conference in Atlanta. He was a software engineer presenting on data security. I was there for a risk analysis panel. We ended up at the same table during the lunch break, and he asked me what I was reading on my phone. I was reading a text from my mother. Tyler's rent was overdue again, and Linda wanted to know if I could help him out this month. $800. I had already sent Tyler $8,000 over 3 years. Down payment on his car, security deposit on his apartment, a dental bill he said he'd pay back in 2 weeks. That was 11 months ago.
Daniel saw my face and said, "Bad news?" "Family," I said. He nodded like that was a complete answer. Then he asked me something no one in my family had ever asked. "Do they ever call just to ask how you are?" I opened my mouth, closed it, tried to remember. I could not think of a single call from my mother or brother that did not include a request, a complaint, or a reminder of something I owed them. Daniel didn't push. He just handed me a napkin, because I hadn't noticed the coffee I'd spilled. His family was different. His mother, Patricia, was 63 and sent birthday cards to every person she'd ever loved, including her mail carrier. She included a $20 bill every time, even for adults. Daniel was 34 and still got one. He kept every card in a shoebox in his closet. Not receipts, not transfers, cards. I started tracking things differently after I met Daniel. I opened a spreadsheet on my laptop. One tab for family events, another for RSVPs. It was just how I organized my life. That's what I told myself.
Daniel proposed on a Saturday afternoon at the botanical garden where we'd had our second date. He got down on one knee next to the magnolia tree that had been blooming both times we visited. The ring was a simple solitaire on a gold band. He said 4 things. I love you. I respect you. I choose you. Will you marry me? I said yes before he finished. I called my family from the parking lot. My mother picked up on the 3rd ring. Mom, Daniel proposed. We're engaged. There was a pause. Then Linda said, "Oh, that's nice. Did you hear Tyler might be getting a promotion at the dealership?" I waited for something else. A squeal, a question about the ring, anything. She moved on to Tyler's work schedule and how she hoped he'd finally get his act together. Tyler responded to my text in the family group chat with a thumbs up emoji. 1 tap. No words. My father wrote, "Congratulations, sweetheart." It was the warmest thing anyone on my side said. He still didn't call. The next weekend, Patricia threw an engagement dinner at her house. 12 people. She made a 3-layer lemon cake from scratch, the kind she'd been baking since Daniel was a kid. The frosting was uneven and the candles were mismatched. And it was the most beautiful cake I had ever seen. She hugged me at the door and said, "Welcome to the family, honey." I added a new row to my spreadsheet that night. Event, engagement announcement. Family response, well side, minimal. I didn't assign blame. I just wrote what happened. That's what spreadsheets are for. Wedding planning took 14 months. Daniel and I chose a restored farmhouse venue in the Blue Ridge foothills, about 90 minutes from Charlotte. Garden terrace ceremony, indoor reception with string lights and long wooden tables, 85 guests maximum. I did what I always do. I made a plan. Save the dates went out 10 months early. Invitations went out 4 months before the wedding. I hand-addressed every single one. Cream-colored envelopes. I taught myself calligraphy from a YouTube tutorial series, practicing on scrap paper at the kitchen table every night for 3 weeks. Each envelope was sealed with a burgundy wax stamp I ordered from a shop in Vermont. It was the most time I had ever spent on anything that was just for me. My mother offered no help. She did not ask about the venue, the dress, the flowers, or the food. Tyler did not respond to the save the date. My father said, "Sounds nice," and asked if there would be parking. Patricia was the one who drove with me to 3 venue tours. Patricia was the one in the fitting room when I tried on my dress. She sat on the little velvet bench and cried when I came out in an ivory A-line with lace sleeves. She pulled a tissue from her purse and said, "That's the one." My mother wasn't there. She'd said she was too busy that week. I never asked what she was busy with. I had stopped asking. I mailed 42 invitations to my side. I logged every send date in my spreadsheet. Name, address, date mailed, RSVP status. The RSVP column sat blank for weeks. That should have been my warning. But I had spent 32 years reading silence as normal. 2 weeks after I mailed the invitations, my phone buzzed at 8:43 in the evening. Family group chat. Tyler had posted a photo of himself and his girlfriend Ashley on a rooftop somewhere downtown. Her hand was raised. There was a ring. The caption read, "She said yes.
Engagement party, June 15th. Save the date. June 15th. I stared at the screen, picked up my spreadsheet notebook from the counter, flipped to the calendar tab. June 15th was highlighted in green. It said, wedding. I read the message 3 more times. My chest went tight, but my hands stayed still. I had learned a long time ago that reacting fast in my family meant losing. I texted Tyler privately. No exclamation points, no anger, just the question. Hey, June 15th is my wedding day. You know that, right? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. His reply came 4 minutes later. Yeah, but Ashley's family can only do that weekend. It's just a party. Your wedding is a whole different thing. It's just a party. I read that sentence 5 times, closed my phone, set it face down on the counter, walked to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. It's just a party. My wedding, the one I'd planned for 14 months, the invitations I had dressed by hand, the venue I booked with my own savings, the dress Patricia cried over, the calligraphy I taught myself at the kitchen table.
Just a party. Daniel found me standing in the bathroom, gripping the edge of the sink. He didn't ask what happened. He looked at my face and said, "What did they do now?" I showed him the text. He read it once, set the phone down. "We're not moving the date," he said. "No," I said. "We're not." I called my mother the next morning, kept my voice level, financial analyst voice. "Mom, you know June 15th is my wedding. Can you talk to Tyler about changing his date?" Linda sighed, the kind of sigh that means she's already decided. "Honey, your brother just got engaged. This is his moment. You've had your whole engagement to plan. Can't you just be happy for him?" I am happy for him, but my wedding is already planned. The venue is booked. Invitations are out. Well, maybe people will go to both. She said it like she believed it. Like a backyard barbecue and a wedding 90 minutes apart on the same afternoon were just 2 items on a Saturday to-do list. Over the next 3 weeks, the RSVP declines started coming in. Slow at first. Cousin Rachel, Uncle Brian and his wife. Then faster. Cousin Kevin, Uncle Ray, my father's college friend Gary, who I'd invited because my father had asked me to. One by one, the regrets column in my spreadsheet filled up. I noticed a pattern. Every person who declined was someone Linda talked to regularly. I confirmed it when cousin Rachel posted an Instagram story from Tyler's engagement party planning meeting. A group of 12 people sitting in Linda's living room, paper plates on the coffee table, my mother in the center holding a clipboard. Then Aunt Margaret called. Margaret was my father's older sister, 66, sharp-eyed and direct. "Claire, your mother told me you're having a small private ceremony and you'd prefer just close friends. Is that true?" My hand tightened around the phone. "No, Margaret, that's not true at all."
Silence on the line. Then Margaret said, "I'll be there, honey. Save me an aisle seat." She was the first person on my side to say yes. One of only 3. 3 weeks before the wedding, I sat at the kitchen table at midnight, laptop open, spreadsheet glowing in the dark. The numbers were final. 42 invitations sent to my side. 3 confirmed. Aunt Margaret, my college roommate Simone, who had no connection to Linda, a childhood friend named Becca, who lived in Raleigh, and hadn't spoken to my mother in years. Everyone else declined, no response, or unable to attend. 39 people gone. Daniel came out in a t-shirt and boxers, rubbing his eyes. He looked at the screen. Didn't need to ask how bad. 3 out of 42. He pulled a chair next to mine, sat down. Didn't tell me it would be fine, didn't offer solutions, didn't try to fix it. He just sat there.
For a while, neither of us said anything. Then I closed the laptop. I'm not canceling. I'm not postponing, and I'm not calling her to beg. Daniel nodded. Good. The next day, Patricia found out. I hadn't told her the full picture, but Daniel did, because he knew I wouldn't ask for help, and he knew his mother would want to give it. Patricia made phone calls for 2 straight days. By Thursday evening, 30 additional guests had confirmed. Daniel's extended family, Patricia's book club, neighbors from their street who had watched Daniel grow up, and a retired couple from Patricia's church who said they'd be honored to attend. I opened the spreadsheet and added a new column on the right side. People who showed up. I typed in the names one by one. The list was long, longer than I expected, full of people who had never met me, but said yes because Patricia asked. That column would become the most important part of the whole document. June 15th, 6:32 in the morning. I was sitting in a chair at the farmhouse venue while a hairstylist pinned the last curl into place. The Blue Ridge Mountains were soft and blue through the window, still catching the early light. The air smelled like cut grass and gardenia from the terrace arrangements. Patricia arrived at 7. She had driven up the night before and stayed at a motel down the road so she could be there first thing. She carried a small velvet box. "This was my mother's," she said. She opened it. Inside was a pearl and silver brooch, no bigger than a quarter. She wore it at her wedding in 1961. I wore it at mine, and now it's yours. She pinned it to the edge of my veil. Her hands were steady. Mine weren't. I checked my phone once. The family group chat was silent. No message from my mother. No thinking of you from my father. No good luck from Tyler. The last message in the thread was from 3 weeks ago. Someone sharing a photo of Tyler's engagement party centerpieces. Plastic wine glasses filled with fake flowers. I closed the chat, closed the phone, and set it in my clutch. In the main room, the welcome table was set. The guest book, a framed photo of Daniel and me at the botanical garden, and my calligraphy practice sheet, the one from those late-night sessions at the kitchen table, mounted in a simple wooden frame.
A friend had suggested it. I almost said no. But there it was. All those loops and lines and imperfect letters. Proof that I had tried. I knew the chairs would be empty. I had 3 months to prepare for that. But knowing something and seeing it are 2 different things entirely. The ceremony started at 4 in the afternoon. 72 guests, nearly all of them on Daniel's side. My side had 6 people. Aunt Margaret, sitting in the front row in a navy dress, clutching a tissue she hadn't used yet. Simone and Becca 2 rows behind her, and 3 of Patricia's neighbors who had crossed over to my side because, in their word, the chairs looked too lonesome. 42 invitations. 6 seats filled. The photographer set up at the back. I could see her adjusting the angle, trying to frame the shot so the empty chairs didn't dominate. But they did. White folding chairs on green grass, each one a name I had written in calligraphy 4 months ago. I walked down the aisle alone. I had decided that weeks before. I was not going to ask my father to walk me
when he had already chosen where he would be that day. I was not going to manufacture a moment that should have been real.
So I walked alone down the stone path, past the hydrangeas, past the lemon tree someone had set by the altar for luck. My dress was ivory with lace sleeves, and it caught the late afternoon light like something from a painting I had never been able to afford. Aunt Margaret caught my eye. She didn't wave, she didn't cry. She nodded, slow and firm, a nod that said, "I see you. I'm here. Keep going." I reached the altar. Daniel was standing there, in a charcoal suit. His eyes were wet. He reached for my hand and held it tight. We said our vows. His voice cracked on the word always. Mine stayed steady. I had been practicing steady for 32 years. The reception was in the barn behind the farmhouse. String lights, long wooden tables, wildflower arrangements in mason jars. The band played soft jazz while people found their seats, and for the first time all day, the room felt full. Our first dance was to a song Daniel had chosen without telling me, a Norah Jones track we danced to in his apartment kitchen the night we decided to move in together. I leaned into him and let the room blur. Then came the cake, a 3-tier lemon cake iced in white buttercream with real lavender sprigs pressed into the frosting. Patricia's recipe, scaled up by the venue baker. Patricia had spent an hour on the phone with the woman, walking her through the exact ratio of lemon zest to sugar. Too much zest and it's bitter, she'd said. Too little and it's just sugar with ideas. Daniel and I cut the first slice together. People clapped. The photographer crouched low for the angle. That's when my phone buzzed. It was in my clutch on the sweetheart table. I almost didn't check, but the buzz came twice, and something in my chest already knew. I opened the clutch. My father's name was on the screen. One message. "What did you do?" No greeting. No, "how was the ceremony?" No, "I'm sorry, I'm not there." Just an accusation, typed in capital letters, sent from a barbecue 90 minutes away, where my entire family was eating grocery store cake off paper plates. I stared at the screen. I looked up. Daniel was talking to his best man. Patricia was laughing with Aunt Margaret near the dessert table. The lemon cake sat in the warm light, untouched except for our slice. I smiled. Not a smirk, not victory. Relief. For 32 years, I had been waiting for my family to show up. In that second, I stopped waiting. I set the phone face down on the table. I never replied. It's just a party. Yeah, I guess it was. Here's what was happening 90 minutes away while I was dancing with my husband. Tyler's engagement party was in his backyard. Folding tables covered in checkered paper, disposable cups, a speaker playing a country playlist from his phone. Ashley's parents brought a grocery store sheet cake with "Congrats T and A" written in blue icing. The D was smudged. Linda was in the center of it, as she always was. She moved between groups, touching elbows, laughing loudly, making sure everyone saw how happy she was to be celebrating her son. Cousin Rachel was standing by the cooler when she asked the question, "Where's Claire? Isn't her wedding today?" Linda didn't miss a beat. She tilted her head, smiled warmly, and said, "Oh, she wanted something very small, just her and Daniel. You know how private she is." She said it with the ease of someone who had rehearsed it. Nobody pushed back. Nobody questioned it. Because Linda had been the narrator of our family's story for as long as anyone could remember. She decided who was generous and who was difficult, who was loyal and who was selfish. And everyone believed her, because believing her was easier than asking. My father sat in a lawn chair near the fence, beer in hand. He had texted me 20 minutes earlier. No reply. He checked his phone once more, then put it in his pocket and went back to his potato salad. Tyler stood up and gave a toast, raised a plastic cup to the woman who said yes, and everyone cheered. He did not mention me. Not once. Not even in passing. I was 3 minutes into my first dance at that point. I didn't know any of this yet, but I would. 1 week after the wedding, Aunt Margaret went to Sunday brunch with extended family. It was a monthly tradition, a booth at a diner off Highway 74, eggs, toast, coffee, gossip. Cousin Rachel was scrolling through her phone at the table, showing photos from Tyler's engagement party. Group shots, the backyard, Tyler and Ashley cutting the sheet cake, everyone smiling. Margaret looked at each photo and counted the faces. Uncle Brian, Cousin Kevin, Uncle Ray and his wife, her brother Robert sitting in that lawn chair with a paper plate balanced on his knee. All of them. Everyone. On the same day her niece walked down the aisle to an almost empty garden. Margaret picked up her own phone and pulled up the wedding photos I'd sent her the day after the ceremony. The farmhouse, the terrace.
The string lights, Daniel and me at the altar, and the chairs on my side. 3 people surrounded by white, empty seats on a green lawn. She held both phones, side by side. One hand, a full backyard. The other hand, an empty aisle. She set her coffee down and looked at Rachel across the table. "Rachel, did Linda tell you about Claire's wedding?" Rachel nodded. "She said Claire eloped. Super small. Didn't want anyone there." Margaret's jaw tightened. She was at that wedding. She watched me walk down the aisle alone. She saw me not cry. She saw the 3 chairs that were filled and the 39 that were not. She didn't say anything at the table. Not yet. But she pulled out her phone and took a screenshot of the conversation. Then she went home and sat at her desk for a long time. Margaret was not the kind of woman who acted without thinking. But she was the kind of woman who acted. 3 days later, Margaret created a new group chat. She added me, herself, Cousin Kevin, Uncle Ray, Cousin Rachel, and my father's cousin Louise, who lived in Asheville and had always been kind to me at holidays. She did not add Linda. She did not add Tyler. She did not add my father. Then she typed a message, attached 3 images, and pressed send. The first image was a photo of one of my calligraphy envelopes, the one addressed to Cousin Kevin. Cream-colored, burgundy wax seal, postmarked 4 months before the wedding. The second image was a screenshot of my RSVP spreadsheet. 42 names, send dates, and a response column reading, declined, declined, no response, declined, with 3 confirmed.
The third image was the photo from the ceremony, taken from behind the aisle. The garden, Daniel at the altar, and on my side, 3 people. On his side, a full house. Margaret's caption read, "Claire did not elope. She sent invitations 4 months early. 42 of us were invited. I was one of 3 who came." I was at my desk at work when the notification appeared. I opened the chat and watched 19 minutes of silence. Then the messages came in like a dam breaking. Kevin, Linda told me it was private. Rachel, she said Claire didn't want a big wedding. Louise, she told me Claire and Daniel were doing a courthouse thing. Ray, she told me the same. I watched the messages scroll, each one a version of the same lie, told in a slightly different voice. My mother had called every one of them individually, with a story tailored to whatever would make them feel least guilty about skipping my wedding. I didn't type anything. I just watched. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone in what I knew. The group chat lived for 48 hours before it leaked. Cousin Rachel, who was in both my family's main chat and Margaret's new one, mentioned it to Tyler during a phone call about something else entirely. She didn't mean to start a fire.
"Margaret started this chat about Claire's wedding," she said.
The way someone mentions weather before moving on. But Tyler didn't move on. He called Linda. "Mom, there's a group chat going around with Claire's wedding pictures. People are asking questions." Linda called Margaret within the hour, her voice tight and controlled, the way it got when she felt her version of events was being threatened. "What are you doing, Margaret? Why are you stirring up drama?" Margaret did not match her tone. "I'm not stirring anything, Linda. I'm correcting a lie." Linda hung up. Then the chain continued. Linda called my father, and my father called me. The first time he had dialed my number in 5 weeks. "Claire, what is going on with this group chat? Your mother is very upset." I was standing in my office, door closed, phone pressed to my ear. "She should be." Silence. "This is tearing the family apart." "No, Dad. This is what it looks like when the family finds out what actually happened." More silence. Then, "Can't you just let it go? For the family?" I could hear the tiredness in his voice. He was not asking me to forgive. He was asking me to be quiet so he wouldn't have to deal with it. I said something then. Something I had been saving without knowing it. "It's just a group chat, Dad." The line went silent. He recognized the rhythm, even if he couldn't place the words. Then he hung up. Over the next 2 weeks, my phone came alive in a way it hadn't since childhood. Cousin Kevin called first, his voice shaky. "Claire, I'm so sorry. If I'd known, I would have been there. Your mom told me you were doing something small, and I should have called you directly." "I know what she told you," I said, keeping my voice even. Not cold, just even. "I should have checked." "Yes," I said. "You should have." He went quiet for a moment. "Is there anything I can do now?" "You just did it." Rachel called next, then Louise, then Uncle Ray, who didn't call me but called my father. "Robert, did you know about this? Did you know Linda lied to every one of us about Claire's wedding?" My father's response, according to Margaret, who heard it secondhand, "That's between Linda and Claire." Between Linda and Claire. As if what happened was a disagreement about whose turn it was to host Thanksgiving. I didn't reach out to Linda. I didn't reach out to Tyler. I didn't reach out to my father. I answered the phone when relatives called me. I spoke clearly. I didn't embellish. I told them the dates, the numbers, the timeline. Everything was already in the spreadsheet. I just narrated it. 5 people called to apologize. Not the entire 42, but 5 was more than I had expected. And each one had looked up my number on their own. I opened my spreadsheet that night and added a new column on the far right. Called to apologize after finding out. 5 names, highlighted in green. The spreadsheet had started as a planning tool. Then it became evidence. Now it was becoming something else entirely. A record of who showed up late, but showed up. 3 months after the weddings, Margaret called me on a Tuesday evening. Tyler and Ashley broke up. I set down my coffee. What happened? Ashley had found out about the group chat, about what Linda did, and confronted Tyler. Margaret had gotten the details from Rachel, who had gotten them from Ashley's sister. The story went like this. Ashley sat Tyler down at their kitchen table and asked him directly, "Did you know your mother told your sister's entire family not to come to her wedding?" Tyler said yes. "And you didn't say anything? You didn't change your party date?" Tyler's answer, according to Ashley's sister, "It's not my fault people chose my party." The same sentence, word for word, the one he had texted me 5 months earlier. "It's just a party." That phrase had followed him home. Ashley moved out within 2 weeks and left the engagement ring on the kitchen counter next to a note that said, "I can't marry into a family that does this."
2 weeks after that, Tyler called me. Not to apologize, not to ask how I was doing, but to ask if I could help him negotiate breaking his apartment lease early. He said the landlord was being unreasonable, and he knew I was good with that kind of thing. I stood in my kitchen, phone to my ear. I'm not available for that. Silence. Claire, come on. I just need you to look at the contract. I heard you, and I'm not available. He hung up first. I put my phone on the counter and looked at Daniel, who was making dinner across the room. He raised an eyebrow. Tyler? He asked. Tyler, I said. He turned back to the stove. Pasta's almost ready.
5 months after the wedding, Linda called me. No text first, no warning, just my mother's name on the caller ID at 7:15 on a Tuesday morning. The first time she had dialed my number since the group chat fallout. I answered because part of me, the part that had been 16 and filing tax returns, still picked up when she called. Claire, I need you to help me with my insurance enrollment. Open enrollment ends Friday. No hello, no how are you, no mention of the wedding, the group chat, or the 7 months of silence. Just the request, delivered the same way she had delivered every request for 32 years, as though I had been waiting for it. I can't help with that anymore, Mom. A pause. What do you mean you can't? You always do this. I always did. I don't anymore. Another pause, longer this time. I could hear her breathing, processing, not the words, but the tone. She wasn't used to hearing no from me, not like this. Fine, she said, and hung up. She called Tyler. Tyler didn't know the difference between an HMO and a PPO. He called my father. My father didn't own a computer and hadn't logged into anything with a password since 2014. Linda missed the open enrollment deadline and was charged a penalty of $380. It was the first time in 18 years she had missed that window, because for 18 of those years, I had been the one filing for her. $380, the cost of losing the family fixer. It was the most measurable consequence yet, and she still didn't call to say she understood why I left. 7 months after the wedding, Linda called again. Your father has a cardiology appointment on Tuesday. He needs a ride. My father had a minor heart condition, regular checkups every 4 months. Nothing life-threatening, but the kind of thing that needs monitoring. For the last 5 years, I had driven him to every appointment. I knew the cardiologist's name. I knew which floor the office was on. I knew my father liked to stop for a donut afterward at the bakery on 7th Street because he said it was his reward for behaving. He can call a car service, I said, or Tyler can drive him. Tyler is working. So am I. She hung up without saying goodbye. My father took an Uber for the first time in his life. He was 61 years old and had never used the app. A younger man helped him download it in the parking lot of the medical building, and the driver turned out to be a retired teacher named Gerald, who talked to my father about fishing for the entire ride. Dad called me afterward, not to complain, not to guilt me. The driver was nice, he said. Gerald. He showed me how to use the app. It was the most normal thing my father had said to me in 7 months. We talked for 3 minutes. He asked about the weather in Charlotte. I asked about his appointment. He said the doctor was pleased. It was small. It was the closest thing to warmth either of us had managed. Margaret turned 67 in October. She decided to host a birthday lunch at a Mediterranean restaurant in Charlotte. A private dining room, 18 guests, extended family from both sides of the Bennett tree. She called me on a Thursday evening. I want you there. I also want Linda there. This is my birthday, and I'm not choosing sides. I'm not the one who made sides, Margaret. I know. That's exactly why I need you in that room. I didn't answer right away. I had spent 7 months building a life without my mother in it, and walking into a room with Linda felt like reopening a wound I had just figured out how to dress.
but Margaret had been the one who showed up. She had been the one in the front row at my wedding, nodding me down the aisle. She had been the one who built the group chat.
"I'll be there," I said. "Daniel, too." Of course. That evening, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the RSVP spreadsheet, the paper version I had printed months ago for my own records. 42 names, response columns, everything documented. I folded it neatly and put it in my purse. Not because I planned to use it, but because I had learned something about my family. They only believed what they could see. Daniel watched me zip the purse. "What's in there?" "Insurance," I said. He smiled. He knew what I meant. Saturday afternoon. The Mediterranean restaurant had a private dining room in the back, separated from the main floor by a heavy curtain and a low archway. Long rectangular table, white linen, olive oil and bread already sliced, water glasses filled and sweating. Daniel and I arrived at 12:15. Patricia had dropped us off at the door and squeezed my hand before I got out of the car. "Call me if you need to leave early. I'll be at the bookshop around the corner." Linda was already seated near the center of the table, where she always placed herself. She wore a cream blouse and pearl studs, and her posture was impeccable. When she saw me, her face reset into a practiced smile, the kind that touches the mouth but not the eyes. "Hello, Claire." "Hi, Mom." Tyler arrived 15 minutes late. He looked thinner than I remembered, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a wrinkled button-down. He sat at the far end of the table, without making eye contact with anyone.
My father sat between Linda and Tyler. Buffer zone. He nodded at me when I came in, and I nodded back. Margaret orchestrated the seating with a hostess's precision. She placed me directly across from Linda, Daniel next to me, Uncle Ray and Kevin on my side of the table, and Linda flanked by Tyler and Dad. Everybody talked about nothing. The weather had been warm for October. The Panthers were having a rough season. Someone's neighbor got a puppy. Water glasses clinked. Olive oil was poured. Bread was torn and passed. The air was polite, fragile. The kind of atmosphere where everyone knows something is about to happen and nobody wants to be the one who starts it. Margaret stood up after the salad course. She held a glass of white wine and tapped it once with her ring. The room settled. "Thank you all for being here. 67 years old and I still don't feel it." A few laughs. She waited for them to finish. "I want to talk about family for a moment. Not the kind you see on greeting cards. The real kind. The kind that shows up when it's inconvenient." I set my fork down. So did Daniel. He put his hand on my knee under the table. "This year," Margaret said, "I watched something happen in our family that broke my heart." The room tightened. Linda's hand moved to her wine glass, her fingers curling around the stem. "I went to a wedding this past June. A beautiful wedding at a farmhouse in the Blue Ridge. The bride was radiant. The groom cried during his vows." She paused. "And on the bride's side, there were 3 people. Nobody moved. 3 out of 42 invited." Cousin Rachel put her fork down. Uncle Ray shifted in his chair. Kevin stared at the tablecloth. Margaret looked across the room, not at Linda, but at everyone. "Some of you were told that wedding was private, that the bride didn't want you there, that she preferred something small." She let the words sit. "I was at that wedding. I watched my niece walk down the aisle by herself, past 39 empty chairs, without a single tear. And I'm here to tell you, she wanted every one of you there. She sent invitations 4 months early. She addressed them by hand." She lowered her wine glass. "What you were told was not true. Silence. 17 people, one birthday lunch, and the longest pause I had ever sat through. Linda stood up. Her chair scraped the tile, and the sound cut through the room like a blade. Margaret, this is not the time or place. Margaret didn't sit down. When is the time, Linda? It's been 7 months. My mother's face changed. The practiced smile was gone, and underneath it was something raw, controlled fury dressed up as indignation. She turned to me. Is this what you wanted? To humiliate me in front of everyone? I kept my hands in my lap. My voice stayed level. I didn't plan this. I didn't ask for this.
You always play the victim, Claire. You've always been difficult. You know that. Uncle Ray spoke from the other side of the table, his voice low and careful. Linda, you told me Claire was having a private ceremony. You said she preferred it that way. Linda turned to him. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I was trying to protect her. Protect her from what? Ray said. Her own wedding? The table went silent again. The waiter, who had been approaching with a bread basket, turned around and left. Tyler stared at his plate, jaw tight, without looking up. My father spoke. Quietly, almost a whisper. Can we please not do this here? No one answered him, because doing it anywhere else had not been an option. It had been 7 months of nowhere, and this was somewhere. Linda gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. I watched her face cycle through options, anger, tears, deflection, and she settled on the one she always chose. After everything I've done for this family. But Margaret wasn't.
I came because Margaret asked me to, but if anyone wants to understand what happened on June 15th, it's all there. The dates are the dates, the texts are the texts. That proves nothing, Linda said. You're twisting everything. Then call the people on it. Ask them what you told them. Linda's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I sat down, took a sip of water, the glass cold against my fingers, set it back on the linen, and folded my hands. I didn't say another word. The spreadsheet sat on the table for the rest of the meal. People passed it around like a menu no one had ordered. Some read it carefully, some glanced and looked away. But every person at that table touched it at least once. There was nothing left to argue. The document had said everything I wouldn't. Then my father spoke. He had been sitting between Linda and Tyler's empty-eyed silence for the entire confrontation. Had not moved, had not defended anyone, had not left. But now his voice came out low and rough, like a man who had been holding his breath for 7 months. Claire, I didn't know what your mother told people. I looked at him. The tablecloth between us felt wider than 90 minutes of highway. You texted me. What did you do? On my wedding day, Dad. He flinched. Barely, but I saw it. Your mother said you'd said something that upset the family. Something about not wanting them there. And you didn't call me to ask? No answer. He stared at the water glass in front of him, condensation sliding down the side. Linda cut in, sharp and fast. Robert, don't let her manipulate you. And then something happened that I had never seen before. Not in 32 years of holidays and arguments and long silences. My father turned to Linda and said, Linda, stop. The room went still. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic.
It was the shortest sentence from a man who had spent his entire marriage saying, your mother knows best. And in that moment,
He stopped saying it. Linda stared at him. Her face went white, then red. Then she grabbed her purse, pushed back her chair, and walked out of the room. Tyler stood and followed, head down, his napkin still in his lap, falling to the floor as he rose. My father didn't follow. He stayed in his seat, hands flat on the table, staring at the place where his wife had been. He didn't apologize. Not then. But he stayed. And after 32 years of leaving with him, staying was the loudest thing he had ever done. 2 chairs sat empty, Linda's and Tyler's, napkins crumpled where they had been dropped, a wine glass half finished, a bread plate untouched. The restaurant continued. The waiter returned cautiously and refilled water glasses without making eye contact. Margaret broke the silence the way she broke most things, directly. "Well, happy birthday to me." A laugh moved through the room. Not a big laugh, but the kind that comes from the bottom of exhaustion when you've been holding your stomach tight for an hour and finally let go. Uncle Ray turned to me, his eyes steady. "Claire, I owe you an apology. I should have called you directly before declining. I took your mother's word, and I shouldn't have." "Thank you," I said. Kevin spoke next. "Me too. I saw my own name in that declined column. Rachel, then Louise, then a woman named Patricia, a distant cousin who said she'd always liked me at Thanksgivings. 5 apologies. Not dramatic or tearful, just direct and quiet. The way things should be said when they're long overdue." My father was still sitting in his chair. He hadn't spoken since he told Linda to stop. But now he reached across the table, and his hand landed on mine. Just rested there. He didn't squeeze. He didn't pull. I didn't pull away. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was the first honest thing he'd done in 7 months. Daniel put his arm around my chair. Margaret picked up her wine glass. "Now," she said, "can someone please bring out the cake? I've been waiting an hour." For the first time all afternoon, the laughter was real.
3 days after the lunch, Tyler called. It was late, past 9. I was on the couch with Daniel watching a documentary about deep-sea creatures when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. Tyler's name. I picked it up. Daniel paused the television. "Hey." His voice was different, quieter, rougher, like he'd been sleeping badly. "I didn't know Mom told everyone your wedding was private. I swear I didn't know that. But you knew it was the same day, and you didn't change yours." A long silence. I could hear him breathing. I thought it didn't matter that much. My wedding didn't matter that much? That's not what "Tyler." I said his name the way I used to when we were kids, and he was about to do something stupid. "You said it's just a party. Those were your words. The day I married the man I love, and you called it just a party." More silence. Then a sound I wasn't prepared for. His voice cracked. Not a dramatic crack, but a small one, like a glass that's been sitting too close to the edge for months. "I'm sorry, Claire." I closed my eyes and breathed in through my nose. "I believe you're sorry that things got hard for you. I'm not sure you're sorry for what you did to me." "That's not fair." Neither was June 15th. He didn't have an answer for that. I heard him sniffle once, then clear his throat. Can we maybe get coffee sometime?" "Not right now, Tyler. Maybe later, but not right now." I hung up. Not in anger, not in tears, but in clarity. 1 week after the birthday lunch, Linda left a voicemail.
Daniel and I listened to it together, speakerphone on and volume low, like the words themselves might be fragile enough to shatter. Her voice was shaky, controlled crying, the kind where you can tell the person practiced it in the car before pressing call. Claire, what your Aunt Margaret did at that lunch was completely uncalled for. She had no right to do that in front of everyone. You should.
2 weeks after the lunch, Daniel and I sat on the living room floor with a box of wedding photos. We spread them on the rug and went through them one by one. The farmhouse, the altar, the string lights, Daniel spinning me on the dance floor while Patricia clapped in the background. One photo stopped me. It was taken from behind the ceremony. You could see the aisle, the garden, the Blue Ridge Mountains fading blue in the distance. Daniel at the altar with his hands clasped and waiting. And the chairs. On Daniel's side, a full house. Patricia in the front row beaming, clutching that tissue she'd finally used. His college friends, his cousins, his neighbors, every seat taken. On my side, 3 people. Margaret in navy with hands folded, Simone wiping her eyes, Becca staring straight ahead with the fierce concentration of someone trying not to cry. And between them, 39 white chairs, empty. I held the photo in both hands. "You sure you want that one framed?" Daniel asked, holding up a close-up of us cutting the cake that was objectively more flattering. "There are better angles." "This is the truest photo we have." I ran my finger across the empty chairs, each one a name I'd written in calligraphy, each one a person who believed a lie over an invitation. Those chairs taught me more about my family than 32 years of dinners ever did. We framed it and hung it in the hallway between the front door and the kitchen. Every morning I walked past it on my way to make coffee. That evening, I opened the spreadsheet on my laptop, looked at it for a long time, and then closed it. Saved, but closed. I haven't opened it since. I saw my mother one more time, 14 months after the wedding, at a grocery store off Providence Road. I was in the produce section, squeezing avocados, when I looked up and there she was, standing by the lettuce, alone. No audience, no phone in her hand. She looked different. Thinner, her hair pulled back in a clip instead of styled the way she always had it for family events. Wearing a cardigan I didn't recognize. Her cart had 4 items in it: milk, bread, bananas, and a single frozen dinner. Our eyes met across the display case. For a second, just 1 second, Linda looked like a woman who had lost something and did not know how to name it. Her hand trembled on the cart handle. Her mouth softened. Then she spoke. "You should call your father more often. He misses you." Not, "I miss you." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I was wrong." She couldn't say it. Maybe she didn't know how. Maybe she'd decided long ago that saying it would mean admitting she'd done it. And admitting would cost more than silence. "He has my number, Mom." She nodded once, a small, tight nod, then turned her cart and walked down the cereal aisle without looking back. I stood there for a moment, holding an avocado in each hand, feeling something I can only describe as tired sadness. I wanted her to say it. I think a part of me will always want her to say it. But I stopped needing it a long time ago. My wedding day was supposed to be the worst day of my life. Empty chairs, a text from my father that still sits unanswered in my phone. A mother who chose her golden child over her daughter's biggest day. But here's what they got wrong. They thought the silence would break me. They thought I'd come crawling back, carrying apologies I didn't owe, begging for a seat at a table that was never really mine. Instead, I built a new table. One where every chair was full,
and every person sitting in it chose to be there. That's my story. 42 invitations. 3 showed up. And the best wedding I could have asked for.
Take a moment to comment your city or country. I love connecting with you all. Thank you for listening and supporting, and be sure to subscribe for more stories. More are coming your way soon. Until next time, stay kind to yourself and stay strong.